Hi, and welcome to Regarding AD, a channel devoted to audio description. And my name is Bob, and in this vlog series, I'm just noting down things that I'm learning as I'm going down this journey about audio description. So for those of you who aren't aware, audio description is a process in which the visuals are described verbally. A lot of times I look at film and television with my media background, but it could apply to lots of things, life events and things, all the way up to theater and visual arts. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about metadata and standards and finding things. So I'm in a information sciences class, and one of my projects I'm working on, I came across something, a lot of something that I think might do with some improvement, and I'm not really sure how to go about doing the improvements in terms of helping the audio description movements, as it were, and this process and these standards, but also helping the people who want to benefit from them. So let me show you what I'm finding here, right? So I've got in my hand a copy of the 4K Blu-ray disc set of Oppenheimer, the Best Picture winner from last year, right? And on the back of the disc, there's a lot of real estate on the jacket here, dedicated to, promotional stuff and trying to get you to look at, but there's also a lot of technical details kind of on the back to figure out, like, what am I buying, right? And really far buried down at the bottom in one of the three rows, because there's three discs in this box set. They don't make it easy on us by shoving all these discs and extra digital codes and all that stuff. But on one of them, the Blu-ray row, under audio, there is a line, like a set of characters that says DVS with the little registered trademark symbol, DVS trademark, Dolby Digital 2.0. And as I'm figuring out, DVS, I think stands for Described Video Service. And so this jacket of this disc on Blu-ray is saying on this disc, one of the audio options is to pull up a Dolby Digital 2.0 Described Video Service track. So great. So I've got the video, ready to watch it with audio descriptions or whatever. Of course, the streaming services, they make this seem, effortless and flawless in terms of they've got one entry, and if you're on Netflix or if this is on another service, you can pick any number of languages that they're dubbing their content into and throw on all sorts of different subtitling options. But the reason I'm looking at, discs and DVDs is because I'm thinking about library adoption of some of these practices and helping patrons get access to movies and videos. I mean, I think the streaming wars and what's going on there is a big topic, and I'm discovering that as I'm going, just thinking about ownership and access. So the project, and thinking about, okay, how do I help people get DVDs that have audio description, right? So I'm going to put on the screen here, or screen share my web browser. And on this page, I'm on, the Audio Description Project. That's a part of the American Council of the Blind. They do fantastic work, and I highly recommend people check out their resources. One of the crown jewels of their resources is this audio description list, this database full of information about audio description. So I'll put in Oppenheimer and do a search in their list, and lo and behold, there are three titles that are retrieved related to the string Oppenheimer. And one of them, the film 2023, looks like it's available on lots of streaming services and also available via DVD, it says. And by clicking off of this hyperlink on their page. You are sent over to Amazon, where you can buy a copy of that DVD. It does append in the URL the audio description project's code, so they can get a little bit of kickback if you buy through their code. So that's great if you want to buy the thing, but what if you want to check it out from your local library? How can you verify whether or not the film you want, in this case, a recent release, has audio description? Well, you might know from the audio description project that it has that, but let's say you go over to your library's catalog, and this is where I've been spending my time looking at this stuff. So the library around here is leveraging a cataloging service. I think the name of the service is Polaris, and that is from a group that puts out library products. So one of their products is Polaris, and I'm just showing the website of the company now. I don't even know the name of this company. They make it very difficult to pick out, like, what is the name of the company. Maybe it's called Innovate, and it's part of Clarivate. Very confused. III.com, I guess. But they're providing a cataloging web service for libraries to plug into. Now, whether or not the library in which this record is a part is devoting resources to creating these catalog records, refining them, or updating them, or if they're just buying records with materials, like, okay, we're going to get the Oppenheimer DVD, and somebody is going to be providing all of the information about that to put in our catalog. I don't know, but I can confirm in this entry, way down here in the notes section, along the technical information, I see a line, Dolby Digital 2.0 DVS. Now it's slightly different than what I came across on my disc. Maybe this disc build said something different. That's kind of in the sound information, although it's not clear kind of in the text that that's what that is. It's all kind of shoved in here to this notes field. But the language section is the next section, right? It's touting it's in English and French and Spanish, but it also says that it's described video, which is another term that I've come across. So I guess this record, this metadata record for the movie Oppenheimer at the library says it's described video. Well, let's say I want to, like, okay, I got it once from the library, and I think that's great. I want to go back and get more from my library with described video. So I go over to my easy search. I put in described video. I'm searching any field in the record, and I come up with 10 results total. Let's see, this first one is called Volcano Above the Clouds, Hunt for the Super Twister, The Brain, Identity Thief, Equus, Story of the Horse, World War Speed, The Incredible Journey of the Butterflies, Giraffe, Supercats, Leonardo, The Man Who Saved Science. And that's the end of my list. I've got 10 DVDs that have that string pulled up. But I just saw Oppenheimer had that text string, described video. Why isn't it coming up in my search? Well, I don't know. Maybe easy search is somewhat limited and it's not coming up with things. So I went over to the advanced search and I put in described video and I hit go. Okay. Now I'm retrieving 64 entries. Okay, so there are 64 things labeled described video in this library, this library has a lot of discs, DVDs, and other things. So it's pulling up 64. That's good. What if, I'm thinking maybe I'm not using audio description project or I'm needing to validate some information found on there. Maybe I'm thinking, I'm going to put in described video in one search box, and then the next search box I'll put in Oppenheimer. you know, maybe I'll say I want you to search that in the title field, or let's just say any field. And we'll do exact. I want to know, does the film Oppenheimer, does a thing called Oppenheimer, does the word Oppenheimer across any field and the words described video in any of the fields in records ever come up? And I hit go, and no. At least this advanced search, maybe I'm using it wrong. I could be totally open to somebody saying you're not using it correctly, but it doesn't look like any entry in the catalog has Oppenheimer and described video, but we just confirmed that it does. So I'm sitting here thinking, both from a user experience of trying to navigate what's available, I could walk up to every single disc that I'm interested in and peer down. But this is a sighted thing going on here. There's no braille indication on any of these discs that they have audio description, at least not with any sort of intervention. They're not going to be shelved in a particular section, just like the ones with Engilsh DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, a different audio specification. They're not all organized in the same place. That's not how people peruse materials in a library. So the other thing, completely outside of all this, is I don't know thing one about website accessibility and navigating around, but in my limited poking around here with just spinning up VoiceOver on my Mac, it seems like it would be incredibly cumbersome to validate inside of a particular entry. Let's say you can find the movie that you're thinking about, but then to navigate all of the page, let alone the information inside the entry, to come across a term like described video or DVS. That seems, I'm not an expert in it, and I don't do it a whole lot, but it doesn't seem straightforward at all to be able to kind of surf on your own digitally. So these terms aren't coming up. But the whole reason, and the other thing I should say is what I'm digging into and finding out, and I need to learn more about this stuff, is the mark records. So that's like it's like a computer markup type for bibliographic information and metadata, and trying to structure all of this information about a thing so that computers can synthesize and find it and retrieve it and know that they have certain elements. Seems like, this information could be put in the language note, 546 spot. Again, stuff I don't know fully a lot about yet. There's also the 532 accessibility note spot. There's references in this standard kind of place about things like described video. So, okay, something's coming from the library world here on described video. This channel is AD. We've got the audio description project, but we've got described video here. But the whole thing blew up as I'm doing this research project when I started to catalog all the different terminology that I find in metadata records. So I'm going to read them all out. I'll put them in the description because I think they're useful as people start imagining tools and solutions to some of these issues, or if they're just useful to you, let alone. But I'm going to put up on the screen all of them, and I'm going to read them all out. So here we go. I think you can still hear me. Yes. All right. So in alphabetical order, we have 2.0 descriptive audio, 2.0 Dolby digital, open parens Engilsh DVS, close parens, audio description tracks, Dolby surround, audio : Engilsh for the visually impaired, described for people with visual disabilities, described video, descriptive audio, descriptive narrative audio for the blind, descriptive video captioning, Dolby digital 5.1 surround, parens Engilsh, Engilsh DVS, close parens, Dolby digital DVS 2.1 stereo, DVS 2.0 described video, Engilsh descriptive audio track for people with visual disabilities, Engilsh 2.0 descriptive audio, Engilsh audio description. Hey, that's maybe a little bit more what I'm familiar with and on track. But okay, that's just a break. We're still going. Engilsh audio description for the visually impaired, Engilsh audio descriptive service, Engilsh described video, parens DVS, close parens, Engilsh descriptive audio, Engilsh descriptive audio DVS, Engilsh descriptive audio 2M, Engilsh descriptive video track DVS, also available for the visually impaired, optional descriptive audio in English for the visually impaired, optional Engilsh description video services DVS, audio described, optionally described in English for the visually impaired, parens Engilsh descriptive video service, and video described and visually described for the blind and visually impaired. And so that's our list. What do we got? There's 28 different strings of characters to all get at a very similar situation and description here of a piece of content. Now, some of these obviously have some more technical specifications, like they're laying out that it's included in like a 5.1 surround mix. So that's interesting to people that care about that and that have that set up, or stereo instead of maybe a mono. Maybe people are thinking, I like the movie to have a little bit more dimension to it than a mono track. But in general, this is all just trying to point to the same thing, and it's using so many different words and characters. And you might be thinking, well, but if you squint at all these, or you're thinking about them in the same universe, they all mean the same thing. So what? But a computer doesn't know they mean all the same thing, nor do patrons who are searching for something know to automatically search for all 28 any single time they're trying to search. And what if there's more than 28? I can see even here, I threw this into PowerPoint, and it looks like PowerPoint instinctively auto-corrected the word English. On one of these entries, it was, it had two letters transposed, and so it was misspelled. The word English was misspelled, but your search retrieval is not going to pull that up if you're trying to say exact and you're spelling English the correct way and the catalog entry is not right. So anyways, this kind of started to percolate, and I think a lot of things are percolating, but yet I don't have an immediate, a big push or what's next. I think in general, looking at standards, looking at cooperation, looking at tools, there could be utility for something like large language models here, where you can give it additional all 28 of these, or all however many they've been used either correctly or entrenched in industry in various circles, or just colloquially. What are people using to talk about this out there in promotional materials and in user circles? How are people describing this? And every single time you can add a little bit more to that vocabulary, you could maybe improve the function of a tool that's meant to, I just want to find out if this DVD has audio description. You don't have to know all 28. You can just ask it audio description that the tool knows. Also search for all of these other ways that audio description is said. So that's one potential, thing to look into, is how systems can accommodate for that. But I think the bigger take home for all this for me is just really looking at, I've been reading this book called Metadata by Jeffrey Pomerantz, and just sort of the metadata is supposed to be in the background. It's supposed to just work, right? So like there's metadata is data about data. It's a very nebulous thing. It's contextual. And that's an interesting problem. And there's wrinkles in it, and it rears its ugly head in some situations where it's like, I'm not supposed to be thinking about the metadata. It's just supposed to be helping me. But when it hinders, when it's, one of my professors was talking about, helping to make implicit things explicit, or to be looking and examining what are those implicit kind of systems and interactions and processes, and call them out and make them explicit so we can interrogate them and better them. And I think this is one of those where you just think, the vendor that's supplying these metadata records for the library is doing the right thing by, probably just repeating every single character that they read on the back of a DVD case and putting it in the entry. But if that information can't be pulled up in a search, or isn't right now, or if it can be pulled up, but the language that's used to talk about this core, understanding is so varied, how are people going to find what they need? If a group like the Audio Description Project isn't going above and beyond and doing it, right? They're saying it's in our list, so therefore we're vetting and vouching for it being there if you go out and try to find it. But I think there's a lot more that could be done in that area, and I know I've heard of some conversations around this of just like coming together around what to call this and how to move forward and get out of some of the early years of this. So I'm back to making a long entry. I don't have the energy or heart to cut this down. I wanted to lay it out there. It's kind of related to a project from the summer, but it was just fascinating to keep discovering more and more ways that this stuff is cataloged. And a desire is kind of growing within me to look at that and to see some solutions. So if this sparks anything in you, if you've have ideas, if you've had ideas, if you know of anyone working in this area, if I know it's related to a lot of things that I don't know much yet. That's part of this Learning in Public initiative that I was talking in Vlog 1, being willing to put myself out there and really just say, like, I just want to work on stuff and make things better. So if there's anybody else out there that also wants to do that and work on this, I think some good could be done here. And yeah, so I mean, if you haven't seen Oppenheimer or heard I actually haven't turned on the audio description on it yet. I probably should, but I guess I can recommend that movie. But also, there are so many resources to put to this, and the last thing I would want is some sort of wasted effort where there is audio description on a title, but no one knows about it because it's kind of lost to time in poor standards around the way to capture the metadata for it. So thanks so much for sticking through, and connect if this is interesting or exciting. I know it felt very nerdy to me while I was going about it, but the more I thought about how it impacts just sort of cinema writ large, but especially audio description and gaining momentum and traction and prevalence, and it kind of like becoming a more mainstream from a like a technical standpoint, like a mainstream understanding. I thought, if people don't even know what to call it, and we can't get on the same page about that, I wondered, how much good can be done. So anyways, thanks so much.